What if Castiel could feel Dean falling apart? May 2020. Breakfast in the Mills household is a daily noisy event. Claire is always the last to rise, usually walking only when Kaya jabs her in the ribs as a final warning that if she sleeps any later she won't get any bacon. Alex and Patience have taken over the morning cooking duties in the last year since Patience moved in, giving Jody a much-needed reprieve, and when Claire finally makes it to the dining room this particular morning the table is piled high with food. "Oh, she lives," exclaims Jody over rim of a ludicrously large coffee mug as Claire plops into the seat to her right. "Good morning, sunshine." "Mornin'," Claire grumbles, scooping eggs onto her plate. Alex passes the pancakes and Claire grunts her thanks. Patience sips her green tea and honey, leaning back in her chair and regarding Claire with an artfully arched brow like a mother, despite being the youngest at the table. "You know, if you had a better sleep schedule you'd probably be a more efficient hunter." "Doubt it," Claire says through a mouthful of syrup-sweet bacon. "Most of the things I hunt are nocturnal." Kaya laughs at Claire's side, the tinkling airy giggle that never fails to make Claire's stomach do a loop-de-loop. Kaya doesn't laugh all that frequently. She's still weighted down by her time in the bad place. And not quite trusting the reality of this world, and so when she does laugh it feels like the best kind of reward. Claire doesn't think she'll ever get tired of it. "I feel the need to point out that you're arguing strategy with the only psychic at the table," Patience replies smoothly, munching delicately on a grape. Claire makes a face and opens her mouth to show Patience her half-chewed food. "Real mature," Patience grimaces. Jody slaps Claire's shoulder with the back of her hand. "Hey, what have I said about seafood at the table?" "That it's a middle schooler's tactic," Alex supplies from the other side of the table. Smirking. "I was in juvie for most of middle school, so I must have missed that day." Alex flaps a dismissive hand at Claire and pours herself a glass of juice. Yeah, you're a real badass. "We know." Jody's phone sings from her pocket an incoming video call and she rises from the table. "I'm going to answer this where I can get some peace and quiet," she says, heading for the living room and taking her coffee with her. "Try not to kill each other while I'm gone." Claire sticks her tongue out at Alex, but resigns to focus her attention on her breakfast. "I was thinking," she starts a moment later, half turning in her chair to face Kaya, "that maybe we could go camping next week." Kaya blinks, her skin turning a shade lighter, and Claire remembers a moment too late why Kaya might hate that idea. Spending a year stranded in the wilderness of a parallel dimension and constantly hunted by alien creatures would be enough to put a person off the outdoors forever. And here Claire is suggesting a weekend in the woods. "Idiot," Claire chastises herself. "Fucking Disneyland would have been better." Kaya audibly swallows her mouthful of orange juice, clears her throat, and pushes her scrambled eggs around her plate with a fork. "Why?" Claire shakes her head, already backtracking. I just thought it'd be fun. You know, camping on a lake, just you and me, making s'mores on a fire." "Never mind. We can do something else." Something sparks in Kaya's eye, curiosity mixed with relief, Claire thinks. "Which lake?" is her next question, and the smallest of smiles twitches at the corner of her mouth. Claire's heart leaps. "Well, there's not much around here, but we could drive up to Minnesota, maybe. I found a nice spot at Hickory Lake." Ardana could recommend a place. Minnesota has quite literally too many lakes to count, and naming a specific one is about as useful as pointing out an individual blade of grass in a prairie, but its unfamiliarity doesn't seem to bother Kaya. "That sounds nice," she says softly. "Really?" Kaya nods, grinning almost to herself. "If it's with you." "Awesome," Claire says, making a quick mental note to buy marshmallows and Hershey bars as she scrapes up the rest of her food. "Jody," Alex says suddenly, a worried frown etched into her face as she gazes past Claire to the living room. At the same time, Patience puts down her fork. Claire twists in her seat. Instantly, the sunny mood over the dining table is swept up in a cloud. Jody is standing with her phone still in one hand, her coffee all but forgotten in the other. She stares into the middle distance, shocked to stillness, and when she speaks her words come out a rasp. "That was Eileen Leahy." Terror surges up from the pit of Claire's stomach, and Kaya reaches for her hand. She knows that tone of voice. They all do. "What happened?" she asks. Dean Winchester died last night. The drive from Sioux Falls to Lebanon is silent. Claire, Kaya, and Alex are crammed into the back seat while Patience claims the front. There's no chatting or fighting over who gets to play their music on the radio. There's no music at all. Jody drives white-knuckled and tight-jawed. And Claire clutches Kaya's hand atop her thigh. Alex stares out the window and relentlessly chews her fingernails. Donna got the first call from Eileen, and catches up with them just outside of Columbus, Nebraska. Her giant truck hovers in their rearview mirror and Claire instantly feels just a little safer. Hours later, Bobby and Charlie's respective pickups join them in Hastings. Coming straight from a wolf hunt in Thedford, they make for a strange-looking funeral procession, taking the passing lane of the southbound interstate for themselves. Traffic ahead seems to move to the side without delay. Lebanon welcomes them without fanfare, just as sleepy and dusty a town as ever. Donna's in front now, leading the way through Lebanon Center and back out into the sprawling cornfields. And then the more heavily wooded area that surrounds the bunker. Eileen must have given her either very specific directions or GPS coordinates, because she knows exactly when to turn left onto a poorly maintained dirt road leading through the trees. Jody's sedan bumps and jostles along behind the truck, branches whipping at the windows until the trees break into a grassy meadow completely hidden from the road. Claire's stomach twists when Donna's truck pulls off to park beside the Impala, and she can see straight ahead. Saws, Sam, and Eileen are building a pyre. Somehow, it hasn't felt real until this exact moment. Kaya squeezes her hand. Maybe. Patience starts before anyone opens their doors. Maybe he'll come back. Didn't you say he's died like 100 times? He could come back. Jody pauses, hand still on the steering wheel. This sounded different, is all she says, and gets out of the car. Claire's shoes sink when she steps outside. The field is still muddy from a recent rainfall. Eileen waves, and Donna pulls Sam down into a fierce hug. They both look exhausted, and Sam's face is worn out and haggard, older than Claire's ever seen. And then there's Saws. He's human again, but he's still not her father. And she has to take a second to wrap her head around that, like she does every time she sees him. The last time they met was shortly after he lost his grace only a couple months ago. For a movie night at the bunker, and he'd seemed happy, bright and animated and excited to be on the planet. Here and now, as he dumps an armload of firewood onto the pile and turns to greet the new arrivals. It's like he's barely holding himself up, like his grace has finally left him for good. He hugs Claire for longer than the others, and even when he does let go she can tell he doesn't want to. "I'm sorry," is the only thing she can think of to say. Dean's body is still in the back seat of the Impala, and Claire hates that it doesn't move. Jody was right. All the times Dean's died before somehow. Claire knows in her bones, this is different. This is the kind of real, permanent, pointless loss that Saws hasn't felt before. The same kind of grief that's been haunting Claire for more than half her life. The kind that can't be rationalized as being a sacrifice for a higher cause. She reaches to grip his hand. "Come on," she manages, "we'll help you build it." Saws nods gratefully, like he's having trouble breathing. "Thank you." With all 11 people in the meadow working together, the construction of the pyre goes quickly. Sam and Saws are both having a hard time speaking. And Eileen's too focused on the task at hand to read anyone's lips, so it's up to the rest of them to fill the silence. Alex gratefully recounts the story of how she'd been freed from the clutches of her nest and saved from a life as a bloodsucker thanks to Dean. Donna talks about her experience at the Fat Spa and even manages to elicit a half-broken chuckle from Sam at the description of Dean's hairnet while working the buffet. Charlie tells in impressive detail how Dean rescued her from Michael's prison camp in Apocalypse World. Claire's heard all these stories before, but she still drinks in every detail. Even when Dean had shown up at Jody's house battered and bleeding and stinking after a hunt, he'd always seemed invincible, batting away the darkness and fear and trauma with a joke and a glass of whiskey. This isn't fair, she wants to say. She knows Saws is thinking the same thing. She can feel it radiating from him like he's screaming non-stop. Finally, Saws and Sam carry Dean's body from the car. Claire has to turn away for a moment when they set him down on the shroud. He's gotten stiff, rigor setting in quickly, a bloody hole in his back, and Kaya wraps an arm around her waist and rests her chin on Claire's shoulder. It's okay, Kaya whispers, and Claire swallows and nods and fights back tears because she needs to stay strong right now for Saz, if no one else. She knows that Saz and Dean had become something more in the months since God's death. She knows it, not because Saz or Dean or even Sam ever told her, but because she had seen it hers. Elf every time they were in the same room together. She wasn't blind, and while at first she had to reconcile the idea of a man with her father's face falling in love with anybody other than her mother, she knows what it feels like to find someone to be yours, and the way she caught Dean looking at Saz, well, it's the same way she looks at Kaya. She knows that, so when Cass's hands are hawking so badly that he can barely tie the shroud, when Jody has to step in to help him, Claire isn't surprised. She just understands. They hoist Dean's wrapped body onto the pyre, and the gasoline fumes sting Claire's nose as Bobby pours it from a can he'd gotten out of the back of his truck. Charlie passes Sam her lighter, and he holds the tiny flame in his hands for a moment, not quite willing to let it fall. But he does, and the flames surge up the pyre and engulf what's left of Dean, smoke pouring upward to the clouds. Claire's chest aches, painful and bursting, and she goes to stand beside Saz. He doesn't see her until she wraps both her hands around one of his, and when she squeezes his fingers, something finally gives way for him, and she leans her head on his shoulder as he cries. It takes a long time for the pyre to burn down to nothing, and by then the sun is sinking heavy and golden into late afternoon. Dean is gone, carried away on the breeze. It's over. Bobby and Charlie say their farewells, and Jody and Donna follow suit. Saz has stopped crying by now, but his breathing is still unsteady, like he keeps having to remind himself to inhale. Claire pulls him into another fierce hug because she doesn't have anything else to say or to do, and she knows even if this pain does get better it won't be anytime soon, and, on impulse, gives him a kiss on the cheek. The kiss makes Saz smile, only briefly. But it's enough for now. Call me, she says, her hand still on his, if you need to talk to somebody. Okay, you promise? He nods, his eyes shadowed as he glances at the pile of embers still smoking in the grass. Yes, I will. She pats his shoulder and bids him goodbye, and follows her family to the car. Hey, Mom. Jody stops with the car keys in hand, surprised. Despite their distinctly parent-child relationship, Claire doesn't call her mom all that often, only when she feels like she needs a mom. Do you want me to drive? The offer is partly because Claire wants something to do with her hands, with her body, that she can control. There's nothing to hunt right now. Nothing to hit and nothing to fight. Driving is the next best thing. But mostly, Jody is dead on her feet, worn out from the long trip here and the weight of losing yet another loved one. Jody sighs, long and tired, and hands the keys to Claire. Thank you, sweetie. Once they're all in the car, Claire gives one last wave out the window to Saz, Sam, and Eileen, and guides the sedan back along the bumpy dirt road behind Bobby, Charlie, and Donna's trucks. The sky is lit up blue and gold as the sun swings toward its setting. Steering northward out of Lebanon, Claire watches Charlie and Bobby branch off slightly to the west. The case in Thedford isn't quite finished, still loose ends to address, and Donna stays nearby for as long as she can before they get separated by traffic outside of Columbus. Jody's got her eyes closed in the passenger seat, but she's not really sleeping, just quiet. The miles of pavement unfurl ahead, the patchwork of cornfields and small towns sliding past in unending sameness. The sun falls lower and lower, the sky bleeds red to black. Shortly the moon just begins to peak fat and orange over the eastern horizon. They stop for gas just before Norfolk. They're halfway home, and while Claire fills the tank she spots a shoddy wooden billboard near the off-ramp. It's for a cheesy horror-themed, family fun center, Children of the Cornhole, and advertises an arcade and pizza bar along with 18 holes of putt-putt. Anybody feel like mini-golf? Claire asks once she's back in the car, and doesn't wait for an answer before following the billboard. Even just a couple of years ago, Claire might have reacted differently to this. She'd have screamed and thrown punches and kicked at anyone who tried to get too close, all while denying she was even fazed. Now, she just wants to be with her family, playing dumb stupid mini-golf until they can laugh at something. Late that night, when they finally reach home in the wee hours of the morning, Kaya lays in bed with Claire and doesn't ask her to talk about anything she's feeling. She just holds her hand and throws her free arm across Claire's stomach and waits for her to fall asleep. Once the sun rises again and wakes Claire from a restless slumber, Dean is still dead, and she toys with her phone until giving in to a driving instinct to check on Castiel. She types out text after text, deleting each one when it feels awkward and wrong. At last, she writes one that doesn't make her want to tear out her hair. And presses send before she can change her mind. Hey, I love you a lot, you know. An hour later, Cass's reply appears with a buzz of her phone. I love you too. Blank, _ blank. October, 2020. The trees surrounding the abandoned power plant have finally turned a riot of green and orange and yellow when Claire parks her car outside the bun. Her entrance and shoots a quick text to Kaya to let her know she arrived safely. She then types out a message to Sam, I'm here. Coming in. And steps out of the car. Dead leaves eddy around her boot. As she clunks down the steps to the bunker entrance, piling up in the corners of the stairs, and the wind tugs at loose strands of her hair when she pushes through the outer door. Hoisting open the heavy inner door and making her way down the stairwell to the war room, she's greeted by Sam walking in from the kitchen. He smiles with a pleased, hey, you, and holds his arms wide for a hug. Hi, she says, muffled by his shirt until he finally steps back. How are you doing? He sinks to sit on the edge of the map table, and Claire realizes that for the first time in a long while, his smile is genuine. There's less weight on his shoulders, fewer shadows under his eyes. The grief isn't gone, but it's receding. I'm good, actually, he answers, and it's the truth. Getting there. Good. Claire sets her bag on the table, scratching idly at a healing cut on her cheek from last week's hunt. As I lean here, he shakes his head. No, she and Charlie are taking care of a ghoul in Opelousas. Rotting bodies and Louisiana humidity. Gross combo. Sam chuckles. You're not wrong. Eileen said they'd stop somewhere to shower before they got back. Claire wonders fleetingly if Sam isn't in Louisiana helping with the hunt because he didn't want to leave Saws on his own. How is he? She asks, intentionally vague. Letting out a long, slow breath, Sam scrapes his palm over the corner of his jaw. He's okay. He's been better. Then, with a tilt of his head, he amends, he's been worse, too. She glances toward the hallway leading out the far end of the library, half expecting Saws to appear. And glower at them for talking behind his back. I found him sleeping in the car, Sam adds, voice dropping a decibel or two. A couple of times last week. Claire blinks, then lowers herself into the nearest chair. In the Impala, he said that if Dean's soul had attached itself to anything Earthside, it would have been the Impala. He's right, but I think he knows as well as I do that Dean's not here. Sam clears his throat, voice thick all of a sudden. I think being in the car just made him feel better is all. Claire sits quietly for a minute, taking this in. Well, she says at last, if it makes him feel better. And it's not hurting him, then is that really so bad? No, probably not, Sam sighs. But I don't know, I worry about him. He clears his throat and stands up straight. Anyways, I'm really glad you're here, Claire. It's a big help. Eileen and I do what we can, but I think we've started getting on his nerves. Anytime, she says, and picks her bag back up from the table. She finds Saws in the TV room, sunk into the couch with a heavy book on monsters native to South America in his lap, a tome big enough to serve as a boat anchor. A little light reading, she teases. His face breaks into a wide smile when he sees her, and he quickly closes the book and sets it on the coffee table. Claire. He stands to give her a tight hug and, as always, Claire's heart sends a pang deep into her chest at her father's face, her father's hands on her shoulders. But Saws doesn't sound or move like her dad did, doesn't even smell like him. He looks better than when she saw him, healthier and less withdrawn, but he still doesn't seem like he's getting enough rest. She can't help picturing him sleeping in the front seat of the Impala, waiting for a ghost that would never show. I thought it's best to be prepared in case the monsters start to migrate north, he answers, referring to the book with a shrug. You never know, I guess, she says, but wrinkles her nose at the thing. not nearly as interested in wasting time researching creatures she would likely never encounter. "How are you doing?" he asks with a touch of worry. His eyes land on the cut on her cheek. She waves a dismissive hand. "It's nothing, just a run-in with a wraith in Boulder." "I'm doing good, I promise." He smiles again, and reaches up to brush his knuckles over her cheek like an afterthought. Normally, she wouldn't let him do that, but today it doesn't bother her. "Thank you for being here," he says, in a way that makes her wonder if he'd thought she would change her mind. "Should we get started?" Claire suggests, unsure of what else to say. Saz draws a deep breath, eyes graying ever so slightly, and nods. Yes, his room is down this way." Claire knows where Dean's bedroom is, but she lets Saz lead the way. 2 weeks ago, Saz called her and asked, rife with anxiety and tripping over his words, if she would come and help him sort through some of Dean's possessions. Dean's room had been untouched since the funeral and Saz hated to see all his things collecting dust, and they needed another extra room anyways, he said, for when other hunters came to visit. But he couldn't do it alone. And he didn't want Sam's help. Claire wasn't exactly sure why Saz didn't want to do this with Sam, but maybe Sam was right, maybe he'd been getting on Cass's nerves. When Saz opens the door, the quiet inside Dean's room hits Claire like an ocean wave. It looks the same as the last time she'd been here. She and Dean had ordered a stack of pizzas and marathoned the first 3 Final Destination movies, but the absence at its center is a black hole, pulling color and warmth from every corner. "Where do you want to start?" she asks. Saz draws a long, slow breath into his lungs and holds it there for a moment. "Clothes, I think." Bit by bit, Claire and Saz go through Dean's wardrobe. Flannel shirts that are too big for Saz but too small for Sam end up being sorted into pie. Less to donate to Goodwill or to keep for spares. With other hunters breezing through the bunker with increasing frequency, it seems a good idea to build up a stash of extra clothing. 1 or 2 shirts. Saz wordlessly sets in a third pile to keep for himself, along with Dean's boots. They move on to the rest of the room shortly after. Dean's guns and knives are stockpiled for the bunker. They strip his bed of blankets and sheets and leave them in the hallway to take to the laundry later. Going through his desk drawers, they find hidden stashes of junk food, non-perishable, thankfully the occasional book stolen from the archive, and stacks of DVDs that Dean had apparently rented from various local libraries and never returned. As they comb through Dean's earthly possessions, Claire watches Saz from the corner of her eye, alert to any sign he might be about to have a breakdown. He seems okay, all things considered. His shoulders carry an obvious weight and every once in a while he needs to stop and take a breath. But he doesn't collapse into a puddle like Claire half thought he might. He holds himself together, until, that is, from the top desk drawer Saz withdraws a couple sheets of paper stapled together and, like the air's gone out of him, he freezes. Claire frowns, noticing the change immediately. "You okay?" "What is that?" She doesn't wait for him to answer and leans over his shoulder. "Application for employment. Cocker Cars and Bikes," the heading reads. Claire takes this in, skimming the top sheet. It's for a mechanic shop in the next county over, and all the blanks are filled with Dean's information. As she studies it, Cass's fingertips gripping the paper like a buoy in a storm, Claire realizes that only some of the answers are in Dean's handwriting. The rest are in Cass's. "You were helping him apply for a job?" she asks, as gently as she can. She tries to conceal how startled she truly is at the prospect of Dean leaving the hunter's life behind. It wasn't something she thought he wanted. Still, he'd tried to convince her every chance he could to get out, so maybe she shouldn't be surprised after all. Saz swallows audibly. "We were planning to retire soon," he says softly. "You could still quit hunting. You know." She tries. Saz places the job application atop the desk and leaves it there, slightly crinkled where his fingers had been. "I don't exactly see the point." At that, Claire feels a crack split somewhere in her heart. Saz is barely moving a muscle, but she can feel the hurt and rage and heartache pouring off him like a waterfall, for every future he'd lost along with Dean. "Saz, this isn't good for you," she blurts out, just barely restraining herself from shaking him by the shoulders. He blinks, startled, but doesn't seem angry at her for speaking, so she plows on. "You can't just keep wallowing here. It's not." She stops, scrambling for the words. "It's not healthy." All she can see is Saws sleeping in the Impala's front seat, lonely and waiting for someone who won't show. Letting the world pass by outside the concrete bunker walls. Clinging to an impossible future. All she wants to do is make Saws happy. All she wants to do is fix it. She half expects Saws to get pissed. To snap at her for lecturing him. To tell her she doesn't know what she's talking about and to leave him alone. To tell her she's a child. He doesn't. I mean, Claire continues, softening. It's been almost 6 months. I'm not saying you should move on or anything. Saws tenses at the prospect, but lets her speak. But maybe, I don't know, get out of the bunker. Fresh air, you know. I've been hunting a lot, Saws counters. You know that's not what I meant. I know, he agrees. He studies her face while she waits for him to argue more. It takes nearly a minute for Claire to open her mouth to press him further, but before she can speak he reaches out and brushes a hand over her cheek, like he's checking to see if she's real. She fights the urge to pull away, and lets him. You look like my mom did, she says, because it's true. When she lost my dad. That seems to shake Saws back to the present, alarm and love chasing each other across his face. Claire wraps her own hand around Cass's wrist. Promise me you won't go down that road. Pain pulls at Cass's features, his mouth twitching. He lowers his hand from her face, but she doesn't let go. Claire, every time I lose someone I love, he says at last, I'm sorry all over again that I took your family from you. That I could have caused you even a fraction of the grief he cuts himself off, shakes his head. There aren't words. Promise me, Claire repeats, tightening her grip on his wrist. She's heard all his apologies. She doesn't need to hear another. Finally, something in Cass's face shifts, clicks, engages. His eyes clear. He adjusts his hand to intertwine his fingers with hers. I promise, Claire, I won't disappear on you. She lets out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Okay, good. She squeezes his hand once before letting go. Back to work, then. It's when they reach the last drawer at the bottom of the desk that Claire finds an ancient, beaten leather coat. She pulls it out and unfolds it, giving it a shake to loosen any dust that may have collected in its seams. I didn't think this was Dean's style, she remarks, brushing the worn collar. Saws looks up from where he's folding a pair of jeans, and Claire sees a bit of color drain from his face. It wasn't, he says. It belonged to his father. Claire swallows, suddenly wondering if she'd said something out of turn. Oh, Dean wore it for a long time, when he was younger, Saws explains. Never went anywhere without it. Eventually I think he outgrew it. She blinks, holding up the coat. He did, she asks in surprise. The coat is a larger size than anything else Dean owned, and she can't imagine it ever fitting him. This elicits a chuckle from Saws, a smile gracing his features for tea. He first time in what Claire thinks is months. I meant he eventually figured out that he didn't want to be the same as his father. As quickly as the smile appeared, it's gone, a somber faraway look taking over Cass's eyes. But it was still important to Dean. He never wanted to get rid of it. Claire nods. Should we give it to Sam? No, Saws replies. Sam had a different relationship with John than Dean did. He won't want it. Claire holds the coat out to Saws instead. A thing as important to Dean as this is probably a thing Saws will want to keep, she thinks, but Saws instantly and adamantly refuses. No, I don't want it either. The only reason I don't set it on fire is because Dean wouldn't have wanted me to destroy it. God knows I hated that man and what he did to his sons. She pauses, not sure if she should press further on that subject. Dean had told her stories of his father, but they'd always been fun, good times and getting into teenage trouble before being inevitably caught. Now that she thought about it, she'd never heard the same from Sam. So what do you want to do with it? She asks, unsure whether the coat belongs in the trash or in some dark corner of the bunker, folded away and forgotten. Saws is quiet for a minute, deep in his own thoughts, and finally offers, would you like to keep it? The suggestion catches Claire so off guard that she nearly chokes on her own breath. She holds up the coat again to examine it. It's not just big, it's enormous. Hesitantly she puts her arm through the two long sleeves and shrugs it over her own shoulders. The coat dwarfs her to a comical degree. The cuffs bunch up around her wrists unless she lets her hands disappear entirely, and the hem hangs almost to her thighs. It's warm and solid and comforting. She loves it. Whatever John might have done to Dean as a parent, she'd never met him. This coat isn't John's, it's Dean's. And now it's hers. Thanks, she says, though the word isn't enough. Saz smiles again. I'm glad it'll go to a good home. She stretches her arms out, barely reaching the sleeves' ends. Well, she says brightly. I've got my coat on. Want to go for a walk? Rather than disappear, the smile on Cass's face grows wider. I would love to. July, 2022. It's a sweltering, sweaty day in late July when Claire and Kaya move from Jody's house in Sioux Falls to a cramped apartment in Omaha. Rumbling thunderheads sail across the horizon, threatening but not delivering, and the humidity skyrockets to a tortuous degree. Claire winces and stretches the cramps out of her legs as she steps out of heat. Our car nearly 5 hours in the car on boring interstates and bumper-to-bumper traffic thanks to an accident outside of Ottawa, and she'd been about ready to tear her hair out. From the passenger seat, Kaya clambers onto the sidewalk and reaches for the sky, working a knot out of her shoulder and squinting against the sun. Claire pulls her blonde curls up into a ponytail, then thinks better of it. And ties it into a bun instead to keep it off her neck. They've got work to do. A moment later, before they can start unpacking the car, Cass's junky pickup truck squeals to a stop by the curb behind them. He'd followed behind them all the way from Sioux Falls. The truck bed is packed tight with boxes upon boxes and a few large pieces of furniture that wouldn't have fit in Claire's Mustang. Saz swings down out of the cab, already wiping sweat from his forehead. He shields his eyes from the summer sunlight and gazes upward at the duplex standing just beyond the sidewalk. This it? He asks. Yeah, we're in the one on the right. Claire replies, gesturing to the green door marked 22A. Saz nods in what she hopes is approval. Looks nice, he says. It's a good neighborhood. Claire reassures him that she'd done her research and this neighborhood was the nicest they could afford in the city. This particular area is somewhere between urban and suburban, mostly residential but without much green space between the houses. They don't have a lawn but they're close to a park, and the apartment has just barely enough space for both her and Kaya. Normally, this sort of place would be outside of their price range. Kaya only waits tables, and Claire is a full-time incomeless hunter, but the rent was steeply discounted for them after they took care of a poltergeist for the landlord. Kaya hops up the steps to the front door and unlocks it. Claire shrugs off her already damp overshirt, resigning to wear only her tank top in the interest of not dying from heatstroke. Saz goes to the back of his truck and opens the tailgate. They unload the big stuff first, which goes quickly since Claire and Kaya don't have many large pieces of furniture. Just their bed frame from Jody's house, a bureau, and a bookshelf. A couple of small tables and an armchair. Kaya already made plans to scope out the local thrift stores for a couch, and they'll deal with a sparse living room until then. After that come the boxes. Boxes and boxes and suitcases and bags, clothes and keepsakes. It's mostly Kaya's, since Claire's always been on the move. As soon as Kaya found a home at Jody's, she began to collect things since she finally had a place to put them. Books, mostly, which makes the unloading more difficult since every box is heavy. As Claire, Kaya, and Saz create a somewhat organized pile of crap in the living room. Claire wonders if eventually she might have to stage a hoarding intervention for her girlfriend. Of course, Kaya has similar criticisms of Claire's collection of weaponry and witching paraphernalia. With God long dead, without the looming threat of parallel dimensions and other worlds, there's no need for a dreamwalker. Kaya is happy to consider herself mostly retired. She helps with hunting only occasionally and is much happier for it. She wants a normal life, one unplagued by monsters or gods or things that go bump in the night. Her laughter comes easier these days, and nights when she's startled awake by terrible dreams are few and far between. It feels like ages, but in reality it's only an hour and a half or so before everything they own has been moved into the apartment. Sweaty and thirsty and tired and hungry, the three of them sink onto the bare floor of the living room and rest for a few minutes. Ugh, Kaya says, flopping back to lay flat on the hardwood, damp shirt sticking. I'm so thirsty but I don't remember where we packed the drinking glasses. Claire snorts. You could just drink from the kitchen faucet. Like a horse at a trough, adds Saws. Kaya giggles, but doesn't get up. Claire leans back against the wall and takes in the space. Before they moved in, Claire only sort of liked the apartment. Now that it's hers, theirs, she loves it. The sunlight streams through the ceiling-high window on one side of the living room, turning the air golden. Despite how tired she is and how much she needs a shower, she wants to start unpacking now. To further stake their claim and turn the apartment from something blank to something inhabited, something loved. After a few minutes, Claire realizes that Saws is looking at her, watching her with what she thinks might be pride etched across his face. She smiles and ducks away, feeling slightly embarrassed, although she's not sure why. "I vote we get a pizza," says Saws, already pulling his wallet from his back pocket. "Ooh, yes," Kaya agrees eagerly, sitting upright. "I saw a pizza place a few blocks away, I can go pick it up." Saws hands Kaya a couple of 20s and tells her to order whatever she wants. Claire quickly cuts in with, "Except pineapple." "Get anything except pineapple." Kaya takes the cash, then points threateningly at Claire and insists, "I'll convert you one of these days, I swear." Claire over-exaggeratedly mimics vomiting as Kaya exits the house, only half sure that Kaya isn't just going to get Hawaiian pizza anyways. Once she's gone, Claire heaves herself to her feet and says, "I guess I should find the plates before she gets back." Saws stands as well, chuckling. "You really should have labeled your boxes." "Yeah, well, the hunt I was on before we packed took longer than expected. We were in a time crunch. I think I remember hearing dishware clinking in that one," Saws says, pointing to a box in the far corner. As they unpack the box in the kitchen, stacking plates on the counter and examining bowls for chips suffered during the trip, Claire clears her throat and asks, "Do you like it here?" Saws blinks at her in surprise. "The apartment, I mean. Do you like it?" "I do," Saws replies. "It's a good size for the two of you. And it's important to have a home. We had a home at Jody's. I meant a place that belongs to you, that you make yourself. It's important, I've found. Not just a roof and four walls, but something you've built with intention." Claire pauses, mulling this over. "Is that what you did?" "At the bunker." Saws braces a hip against the kitchen counter, squinting out the window above the sink and watching someone walking their dog down the sidewalk. "I didn't at first, but Dean built some of it for me, and I came to realize that it was important to me, too." "He did." Saws nodded, a trace of a laugh tugging at his cheeks. "Even before I was human, he still insisted on giving me my own room. I always sat in the same chair in the TV room, the same stool in the kitchen, the same spot on the couch. It wasn't because I claimed them, it was because he left the space open for me. That's sweet, I guess. It was vital for Dean to have a place that was his. He never had it as a child, or even as a young adult," Saws continued. "Having a home gave him a place to feel safe, as it did me, and he wanted to share that. I think you'll find the same thing here. Especially sharing it with Kaya." Claire falls quiet, and the only sound for the next few moments is the clattering of silverware as she places it into a drawer. Weight set, she less onto her shoulders the pressure of adulthood, not living with one's parents any longer and moving in with another person, even one she loves as much as Kaya. She suddenly wishes Jody didn't have to work today, that she were here to offer some sage motherly advice or to remind Claire that she can go back home to Sioux Falls whenever she wants. But since she was a child, Claire has been lacking in the parent department. And in this particular moment, Saws is the closest thing she's got. "Do you think my dad would have been okay with me?" she asks, blurting out a question that's been rattling around her brain for months. Or maybe even years. Saws frowns, head tilting, and the expression on her father's face makes her heart feel like it might burst. "What do you mean, with me and Kaya? Do you think he wouldn't have approved?" "I dunno," Claire says, tugging at a strand of hair that had fallen out of her bun. "I just wonder sometimes is all. He and my mom were super church-y, so the whole LGBT thing wasn't something that ever came up." She shrugs dismissively, like she's already done with the question despite having no answer, almost regretting opening her mouth in the first place. "I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter, at the end of the day. They're both dead. Why should I care if they weren't hip?" Saz reaches out and lays his hand on Claire's shoulder before she can turn and unpack more dishes. Claire, he says solemnly, I didn't know your father for very long, not really. But I did know him well. I saw his soul, through and through, and he was a good man. He loved you more than anything. He harbored no hatred toward anybody like you, and even if he had, he would have worked past it for you. You would not have ended up on the street. I did end up on the street, Claire retorts, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. She hastily swipes a sudden tear from her eye. I know, Saz replies softly, squeezing her shoulder. But that was my fault, not your father's. Claire swallows, having nothing to say and too much to say all at once. She wants to push his hand away. She wants to run into his arms. Saz finally releases her, giving her space. You know, I spent some time on the streets too. Quote, surprised, Claire stops short. You never told me that. He nods, clearing his throat. It doesn't seem like something he wants to talk about. He talks anyway. Yes, I spent several months homeless. The first time I lost my grace. I know what it is to feel unsafe, day in and day out. To not know where your next meal is coming from and to not know who to trust. I understand better than most humans what it's like to be without a safe place to sleep, and I do understand what you went through before you found Jody. Maybe not all of it, but I do understand. Her heart twists inside her chest. And Claire isn't quite sure if she wants to cry, to say serves you right for taking my family from me, or to hug him and say she's sorry he ever had to deal with any of it. She settles for a hug. Cinching her arms around his shoulders, she presses her face into his shirt, and he feels like safety. I'm proud of you, Claire, he says. She pulls back. You are. He smiles, a little bit heartbroken and a little bit joyful. Look around. You've built yourself a life. You're building a home. I'm proud of you. I'm very proud. And your father would be as well. Thanks, Saz, she replies. You're a good dad, you know. At that, something sparks in his eyes, and she thinks they might have flashed a brighter shade of blue. His cheeks flush slightly. Well, he says, like he's afraid of breaking whatever spell has fallen over the kitchen in the last few minutes. You and Kaya are always welcome at the bunker. I hope you know that. Just treat it like Jody's house. Claire arches an eyebrow. You sure? Absolutely. You know that means we drop by unannounced and eat all the food in the fridge. He laughs heartily, shaking his head. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'll keep the guest room ready. Blank, underscore, blank. September, 2022. It takes only a few short weeks for Claire and Kaya to settle into their apartment, and to start thinking of Omaha as their home. Kaya finds a job at a diner downtown, and whenever Claire returns from a hunt at an ungodly hour she finds in the morning that Kaya's left breakfast for her in the fridge. Claire makes dinner most evenings, and they lounge on the couch that Kaya picked out and watch movies until they fall asleep. Kaya starts talking about maybe getting a cat, although Claire's not exactly on board with that. Their family comes to visit Jody and Donna and Alex and Patience for dinner in their too small dining area, knocking elbows and stepping on each other's feet as they eat. Claire feels pride swell in her chest when Jody nods approvingly at their decor. Patience gives them a potted orchid, which Kaya places in the kitchen window. Sam and Eileen stop by too, he smacks his head on the archway between the kitchen and living room, and Eileen, exhausted and very pregnant, sinks onto the couch to rest. Saz, on the other hand, doesn't visit. Claire talks to him on the phone occasionally, each checking in on the other, but when she invites him he only tells her he doesn't want to intrude on her space. I don't think you'll want an old man hanging around all the time, he says. In a tone that's only halfway joking. No matter what she says to the contrary, he doesn't believe her. Time marches on. Kaya works. Claire hunts. At last, one morning in mid-September, when the trees on their street are beginning to blush orange, Claire wakes up and glances at her phone to find a text from Sam. At the hospital in Salina. Everything's perfect. Claire releases a yelp and leaps out of bed, thunderously descending to the kitchen without bothering to get dressed. Kaya's halfway through a cup of coffee and is in her work uniform, but when Claire shows her the text she beams and immediately calls the diner to let them know she won't be coming in. The drive to Salina is a blur, and Claire is practically vibrating with excitement behind the steering wheel. A new baby. A baby. The lives of hunters are inherently nomadic, short and violent, and the stars rarely align for a new addition. Did he say if it was a boy or a girl? Kaya wants to know. She's leaning back in the passenger seat, still in her uniform. The wind through the window whipping her hair into a frenzy. Claire pauses, then laughs. I forgot to ask. They reach the hospital just before noon, rain cloud gathering overhead for an incoming autumn thunderstorm. Broken up shafts of sunlight streak across the sky against a gray horizon. The hospital receptionist directs them to the maternity ward, and then to Eileen's room. Kaya holds Claire's hand the whole way. Heart thudding in her chest, Claire pushes the door open. The room is warm and well lit, inviting, with soft pink walls. The bed is empty, and Eileen is sitting in a big armchair in the corner with a baby, a real, actual, live baby in her arms. Sam is perched on a short stool right beside her, grinning ear to ear. Kaya squeals and os and leans over to gush over the baby's little nose and little feet and little hands. Claire gives Sam a fierce congratulatory hug, and stays standing at his side with her arms still around his middle. Claire, Kaya, says Sam, voice shaking with pride. This is Dean. A pang shoots through Claire's heart at the name, and suddenly all Claire wants to do is make sure that nothing ever hurts this baby, that nothing even comes close. Claire stares and stares and stares at the baby's face. He's so small, so fucking small, and his head is topped with a swirl of fine black hair. His eyes are big and dark and identical to Eileen's. He gazes up at his new surroundings bewildered and a bit alarmed, as if he's thinking something along the lines of what the actual fuck. He doesn't cry, though. Confusion aside, he takes in the world around him with an open curiosity. When Claire finally dares to reach out and touch him, he bats a fist against the back of her hand like he's testing to see if she's real. After 20 minutes or so, Saz enters the room, coming back from the hospital cafeteria with a tray of snacks and drinks. His face breaks into a grin when he sees Claire and Kaya, instantly. Reaching over to give Claire a welcoming hug, she almost doesn't recognize him. He's standing straighter, beaming bright as the sun. She's never seen him like this before. Saz picks the baby up from the crook of Eileen's arm, tucking him against his chest before he can start to cry, and it's more happiness than Claire had thought him capable of these days. For a brief moment Claire thinks Cass's grace might have returned, shining out through his skin. With a child in his arms and something to protect, he's at home. Hours later, after a crappy lunch from the cafeteria, Claire and Sam wander down to the hospital gift shop. Just for something to do. Eileen's taking a nap upstairs while Kaya and Saz watch the baby for her. Sam gives a long, jaw-cracking yawn as he steps off the elevator. You okay there, Pops? Claire teases. Sam rubs his eyes and gives a tired chuckle. Yeah, I'm good. Nothing another cup of coffee won't fix. You should get your sleep while you can, Claire suggests. They heard that having a baby can keep you up all night. Oh yeah, where'd you hear that? I think I read it somewhere. Sounds scientific, Sam retorts through another yawn. The gift shop is small and quiet, full of teddy bears and balloons and racks of sympathy cards, something for every occasion. While Sam looks for the chocolates Eileen likes, Claire ghosts over the baby section. Newborn onesies that read "My Grandma Loves Me," and "Stealin' Hearts and Makin' Farts," and a host of other cutesy cheesy lines. So are you guys going to keep living in the bunker? Claire asks, examining a bundle of colorful baby socks. The bunker hardly seems like a place to raise an infant. Not enough sunlight, a million different nooks and crannies into which he could vanish once he starts crawling. Not to mention the constant revolving door of monsters that turn up in the war room, announced or otherwise. Sam pauses. I don't think so, no. The hesitation in his voice makes Claire turn. She raises her eyebrows, prompting. He scratches at the back of his head. He looks exhausted and in need of a shower and a meal that didn't come from the cafeteria's buffet line. Eileen and I are quitting, he confesses. Claire's heart sinks. She can't say she's surprised, really, but it still hurts. What does that mean exactly? It means we're leaving, Sam says, and releases a long breath like he's been holding this in for ages. Eileen and I, the way we grew up isn't something we ever want to do to Dean. I'm sure you can understand that. A lump presses against the walls of Claire's throat. She does understand. Her father was lost. Her mother wasted away. She spent her teen years cycling through foster care and juvenile delinquency, never having a place to put down roots or anyone to ask for help, seeing monsters at every turn. Even if it did eventually lead to her home with Jody, her love for Kaya, her adopted sisters, Claire wouldn't wish it on anyone. So, what, this is it? She can't quite keep the bitterness from her voice. Even if she understands, a tendril of selfishness still winds its way around her heart. Should have known, is her cruel instinctive thought. Everybody fucking leaves. Sam's face changes in an instant. I didn't mean we're leaving you, Claire, he amends quickly. We're just not going to hunt anymore. That's all. Claire swallows, not entirely sure she believes him. It's stupid to feel like this. Like a neglected child. This should be a happy moment and not at all about her. Hey, Sam says, and wraps a long arm around her shoulders. We're still going to see you every chance we get. And wherever we move to, you'll always be welcome. She nods, trying her best to push her misgivings to the back of her mind. And, you know, we'll need a babysitter occasionally, Sam adds with a grin. This coaxes a laugh from Claire at last. I'm not sure I should be your top choice to take care of a baby, she jokes. Unless you want me to teach him how to throw knives before he makes it to preschool. Sam snorts and releases her. Saws seems happy, Claire remarks, returning to browse the gift shop shelves again. Is he quitting too? No, he wants to keep working. For now, at least. Sam rubs his temple with a forefinger. I'm kind of hoping he'll change his mind, but I don't think he likes sitting idle. Claire can relate. Work is a coping mechanism for her, too. In the corner of the gift shop is a rack of novelty mugs, and as Claire wanders by, one in particular catches her eye. It's easily 3 times the size of the coffee cups in the bunker kitchen. ND in heavy blocky letters it reads, I'm the cool uncle. She smiles to herself and picks it up, holding it in her hands for a moment before turning to give it to Sam. You should get this for Saws. A laugh bursts from Sam's chest. And he nods in agreement. Good choice, he says, giving her a playful punch to the shoulder. He pays for both the mug and Eileen's chocolates, and as she and Sam leave he gift shop and make their way back toward the elevators, Sam loops an arm around her shoulder and pulls her close once again, giving her a reassuring and quick kiss atop her head. She wrinkles her nose and pushes him back, making a joke about how he's got another kid to focus on right now. In the elevator, Claire takes a long, deep breath. Something about this moment feels pivotal. When she and Kaya leave the hospital later tonight, going back home to their apartment in Omaha, somehow Claire knows that things will be different. Maybe she won't see Sam and Eileen and the baby as often as she'd like. But those fewer visits won't be cursed by monsters or ghosts or actual curses. They'll be full of things normal families and friends do, barbecues and babysitting and helping each other move. The thought is exciting. Her family is changing, growing, spreading out. She thinks she's okay with that. June 2027. An unusual midsummer cold front hangs heavy over Omaha when Claire finds a potential vampire case in Colorado. The wind outside rattles the apartment windows as she lounges on the couch in a sweatshirt, scrolling endlessly through various news sites in search of unexplained deaths. Kaya's out, working at the diner and taking advantage of the summer overtime hours. At last, Claire stumbles onto a recent article from the Denver Post detailing a handful of unusual animal attacks in the city. Bodies turning up drained of blood, plenty of internet trolls in the comments section joking about Dracula and Lestat prowling the streets of Denver, and none of them realizing how close to the truth they are. She quickly calls Donna, who last she heard was working a case in Douglas, Wyoming, reasonably close enough to serve as backup. Hiya, hun. Donna sounds slightly out of breath, like she might have been in the middle of dispatching some monster and decided to answer the phone anyways. Hey, I just texted you a link, Claire says, wedging her phone between her ear and should. As she clambers off the couch and heads upstairs to pack a bag. I think there's a vamp nest in Denver. Ooh, okay then. Donna's response is punctuated by a grunt. Oofta, what are you doing? Oh, nothing, just digging a grave. There's a pause, and then, well, undigging a grave. Had to burn some bones. Another grunt. I tell ya, I can't wait for a hot shower. Claire snorts. Can you EET me in Denver tomorrow or the day after? What's today? Monday. Oh, sure, I can meet ya Wednesday no problem. Just gotta tie up a few loose ends here is all. Okay, awesome, I'll see you then. Here's a brief sound of a shovel hitting dirt, and then the call ends. Claire leaps up from the couch and takes the stairs to the bedroom two at a time, all too eager to get going, chomping at the bit for a fresh hunt. It takes her only a couple of minutes to pack a duffel with all the essentials: clothes, computer, a few other basics. All the hunter gear she'll need is already in the trunk of her car outside. And any weapons in the house she always leaves for Kaya. The chances of anything paranormal coming after Kaya in their Omaha apartment are low, but Claire is completely unwilling to leave her unarmed and unprotected. Heading out the door, she triple-checks the lock and the devil's trap beneath the oversized welcome mat on the porch. She pulls her car out of its parking spot with a snarl of the engine and, after stopping by the diner where Kaya works to say a quick goodbye and a promise to return in a few days, drives west out of Omaha. Nearly all the way to Lincoln, adrenaline already pumping in her veins. Claire drives 20 above the limit. She's keen to chop off a few vamp heads and almost doesn't even want to wait for Donna, but as I-80 cuts through downtown Lincoln she finds herself slowing. An exit sign announces the upcoming junction with Route 77 and directs Kansas-bound drivers southward. Claire taps a thumb on her steering wheel, foot easing off the gas, and after a moment's consideration she pulls to the right and takes the exit. Donna won't expect her in Denver for another day at least. She's got time for a detour. She doesn't call Saws to announce she's heading his way, partly because she knows he won't mind her surprising him. Partly because she thinks he might try to tell her he's fine and doesn't need the company, that she's fine to bypass Kansas entirely and head straight to Denver. She wants to give him no room to wave her off. Another few hours and a tank refill later Claire drives into Lebanon, through the dusty main intersection that the locals call downtown, and at last down the bumpy dirt road that leads to the abandoned power plant atop the bunker. The sun sinks to the western horizon, glowing pink and golden against the rustling treetops overhead. The cold air in Omaha hasn't reached this far, and when Claire steps out of the car the evening heat soaks into her skin. The area's been without rain for a few weeks and dust KICKS up onto her boots as she heads for the bunker door. She buzzes the doorbell that Dean had installed years ago for Eileen, which both rings and flashes lights to alert them of visitors. Sam and Eileen don't live here anymore, but the doorbell still comes in handy. It's a good minute or so before the door swings open and Cass's face appears, surprise and delight lighting him up. "Claire," he says, already reaching for a hug. "I didn't know you were coming." She shrugs when he lets go and answers with a simple, "It was a last-minute change of plans," which is technically the truth. Saws ushers her inside and insists on feeding her. But since there's not a ton of food in the fridge he calls for Chinese takeout. "Are you staying the night?" he asks when he hangs up the phone. "Yeah, sure, if that's okay." She knows the invitation is a standing one, but she's still relieved when he spells it out. It'll save her from having to choose between spending money on a motel or ruining her spine by sleeping in the car. Saws softens. "Of course it's okay." He reaches out and squeezes her shoulder like he wants another hug. "I'll go get your room ready." She waves him off. "No, I can do that. You go get the food." He smiles at her, eyes lingering on her face, and for a moment Claire thinks that he might tell her he loves her. Instead he nods and reminds her where the linens are stored, as if he doesn't already know, and promises to be back soon. The nearest Chinese restaurant is all the way over in Smith Center, so Claire has the bunker to herself for nearly 45 minutes. She makes up the bed in the guest room she always uses, the one that used to be Sam's, and then wanders. The bunker is quiet, a vacuum without Saws here. She can only imagine how empty it feels for Saws when there's no one else to fill in the gaps. Her ears ring slightly everywhere she goes, and she's not surprised to find a beat-up radio in the kitchen. A pile of Dean's old cassettes sit beside it, an arsenal against the silence. She shuffles through the tapes and selects a dusty Bob Seger. The kitchen fills with Fire Lake, and the shadows retreat to the corners. When Saws comes back, they eat in the library and Claire tries not to be too obvious as she watches him. She searches for any signs of unhappiness, for the sorrow that was so palpable in the first few years after Dean's death. But if he's unhappy, he hides it well. Instead, more than anything he seems calm. Settled. Maybe he just doesn't want her to worry. He asks her about recent hunts, about Kaya, about what fun things she's discovered around Omaha. But he doesn't talk about himself. He retrieves a six-pack from the kitchen for them to share. It still feels strange to drink in front of him, despite the fact that she's solidly past drinking age. As she polishes off her container of fried rice and pops open her third bottle, she asks him about the cases he's worked on lately, and stops short when he tells her that he killed a skinwalker in DeSoto. In DeSoto, she echoes. Saz nods, swallowing the last of a spring roll and brushing the crumbs from his hands. Yeah, it was hiding out in the wildlife refuge there. Picking off hikers. DeSoto is right by Omaha. He pauses, meeting her eye abruptly. Guilt colors his cheeks. Yes, it is. So you just didn't tell me you were in town. It was a simple case, Claire. It didn't require backup. I'm not talking about backup, she snaps. You couldn't even text me to meet up for lunch. Or a cup of coffee. Saz presses his lips together, shoulders sinking. Did you not have time? The question is barbed with sarcasm. The quiet settles heavily over the table for a long moment, the Bob Seger tape having played out ages ago in the kitchen. Saz releases a slow breath, N sits a bit straighter and leans his elbows on the table. Claire, I thought about you every second that I was there. I wanted to call you every minute. It's hard to believe him. Then why didn't you? Because, Saz halts, searching for the words. I want to be careful. What are you talking about? Careful of what? He speaks slowly, slowly enough that Claire wonders if he's thinking in Enoch. Ian and translating to English so that she'll understand. For the first time, she notices gray hairs on his temples, the deepened crow's feet in the corners of his eyes. She never thought he looked old before. Claire, you are precious. You're absolutely precious to me, and I want to be very cautious about overstepping my bounds. I took so much from you when you were so young, and the last thing I want to do is take up more of your life than you have agreed to give. He halts, voice cracking slightly. I don't want to be disrespectful to you, or to your father. I don't want you to think I'm trying to replace him. A rock presses against the walls of Claire's throat, a decade's worth of loneliness crashing through her like a tidal wave. For a fleeting moment she's a teenager again, surging with anger and misery and punching the walls. It's not about you, Saz, she says. He blinks, brows knitting together. It's not about what you want. It's about what I want. You want to make up for everything. Then don't avoid me. Don't tiptoe around me and assume I don't want to see you without asking me. It's not fair. She's speaking harshly. She knows, but he deserves it. He was the catalyst, the primary reason for any abandonment issues she still struggles with today. The least he can do is not make it worse. I don't have a dad. I have you. So fucking call me. She doesn't realize until she stops talking that there are tears in Cass's eyes. Everything he'd done when she was a child, everything they had both survived in the fallout, swells up between them and fills the air. Saz reaches across the table. Claire closes the gap without hesitation, letting him squeeze her hand in his. I will, he says. I promise. Don't break it. He shakes his head. Never. I know you worry about me, Saz, she tells him, softening. But I worry about you too. I mean it can't be easy being here by yourself. His hand tightens around hers again before he lets go, sitting back. I have company more often than you think. If that makes you feel better. Hunters visit every week or so. I mean friends, Saz. Not random hunters who need help with their cases. When was the last time you saw Sam and Eileen? Last week, Saz says. To Claire's relief, I went to Dean's graduation ceremony at his school. Graduation. Saz cracks a smile, the tension finally breaking. Kindergarten graduation. He got a certificate, which is now hanging on the fridge at home. He's very excited. Claire laughs. Her shoulders relax, and she props a boot up on the adjacent chair. I can't believe he'll be in first grade in a couple months. Time flies. It does, Saz agrees. He stacks a couple of empty takeout containers to bring them to the kitchen. Another beer. She declines the offer, tugs on a strand of hair near her ear. And finally tells him why she came to see him. I actually wanted to ask a favor. Saz stills. I found a case in Denver, she says. I think it might be vampires. His head tilts slightly in confusion. Having expected a bigger ask. You need help hunting them? Well no, I just haven't seen you in a while, is all. But I know Dean went down hunting a vamp nest. I don't and to make you do something that's triggering, I guess. She clears her throat, suddenly feeling awkward in the wake of a serious conversation, and quickly amends. Donna's already on her way to Denver, so if you don't want to. You don't have to, but it'd be nice if you came. Saz shakes his head with a smile, a touch of excitement seeping into his voice at the prospect of working a case with her. I'll be fine. I say we get some sleep and head to Denver first thing. Relief washes over her. Finally he isn't keeping to whatever distance he thinks he owes her. Great, she says, but we're taking my car. In the morning, Saz barely manages to squeeze himself into the Mustang's passenger seat, and Claire just laughs at him as he grumbles and moves the seat as far back as it will go. He's packed all his own vamp-killing equipment into the trunk and they're letting the Impala stay in the garage. Weirdly, as she drives past the Impala and away from the bunker, Claire gets the idea that the car looks disappointed. The dragging hours of pavement between Kansas and Colorado are made less dragging by the conversation. Funny work stories Claire inherited from Kaya, local drama from the Lebanon gossip vine. And arguments over the best road snacks. It seems to come in waves, ebbing and flowing with a sort of rhythmic inconsistency. There are stretches where the talking is easy, like she's in the car with her real dad. And then their history will sweep back in and fall heavy on the air between them, engulfing and strange, and the man sitting beside her is a shell disguising the creature that killed her family. She knows he's more than earned her trust and his place in the passenger seat, but every once in a while it still strikes her between the ribs. He's learned, and she needs to forgive him for the things he's still learning, and a teensy part of her resents him for not seeing her more so that he can learn faster. He's not a perfect replacement for her father, but she still wants him to be. They don't arrive in Denver until after 5 o'clock, so there's no real point in doing any investigating right away since the coroner's office is closed. Instead, they drive to A.M. Hotel on the edge of the city to rent a couple of rooms, get their bags out of the car and wash off the travel grime. Saz goes in search of some dinner. After he returns with a pizza, they hang out in his room and half-watch TV while they eat, catching some old movie on TCM. Saz props his back against his headboard, paper plate in hand, and Claire sits cross-legged on the other bed with her hair still damp from the shower. Pizza in one hand and her phone in the other, she confirms tomorrow's hours for the city coroner and then sends the motel info to Donna. "Who are you texting?" asks Saz when Claire's phone pings with a response. "Donna. She says she'll be here tomorrow around 8 a.m. That'll be nice. I haven't seen her in a while." Claire makes a noise of agreement through a mouthful of cheese and pepperoni. Tossing her phone onto the bedspread beside her. "I don't recognize this movie," she remarks. It's something with Katharine Hepburn, but she doesn't know any of the other black and white faces on the grainy TV. "Me neither. Do you want a date?" says the TV, with some more of those lumbermen. "Am I supposed to apologize for being born in Seattle? When was the last time you went to the movies? Like, at an actual theater?" Claire asks. Saz huffs a laugh. "I have no idea. Couple years, at least. We should go sometime." Cass's eyes leave the screen, flashing over to Claire in surprise. "You and I?" "Yeah," Claire says, clearing her throat. She studies her pizza crust, feeling awkward again. "I dunno, it'd be fun. We can watch a crappy movie and make fun of it." He smiles, touched. "I would love that. Anytime you want, I'll be there." There's a pang in Claire's chest for a brief moment, thinking of the movies she would have wanted to see with her dad, but she pushes the thought back. Focusing on what could have happened isn't what she wants to do. At that moment, Cass's phone buzzes and rings with an incoming video call. "It's Eileen," he says, muting the TV. He sticks his plate onto the bedside table. When he answers the call, though, it's not Eileen who appears. "Hi," Saz beams, his expression bright even in the dim motel room lighting. "Hello, Dean. Did you steal your mom's phone again?" "I borrowed it," Dean insists. The degree of solemnity coming from a 5-year-old makes Claire snort, and she claps a hand over her mouth to stifle herself. "Are you at work?" "No, not right now," Saz answers. "What's up?" Can we go to the movies tomorrow? I wanna see Transformers. They made another Transformers movie. Yeah, Dawn of Optimus. Mom doesn't wanna see it, but she said I can go with you. Saws chuckles. No, I don't imagine Dawn of Optimus is your mother's thing. I'd love to take you, but I'm in Colorado for a few days. Do you want me to take you next week? Okay, but I gotta go to Jordan's birthday party on Wednesday. Again, Claire has to cover up a laugh. Barely out of kindergarten, Dean already sounds world-weary and burdened by a heavy social calendar. All right, then, I'll take you next Thursday. We can get lunch too. Okay, bye. Saws smiles to himself as he switches off his phone, placing it aside and unmuting the TV. Seems like you and Dean had the same idea. Seems so. Claire chews another bite of pizza slowly, watching the screen but not paying much attention to it. She can feel Saws looking at her out of the corner of his eye. That new girl seems to have an awful crush on Shakespeare. The TV exclaims, I wouldn't be surprised if they got married. Oh, you're foolin'. Shakespeare's dead. Saws waits a minute before speaking again. You know, Claire, that doesn't mean that Dean has to come with us. Claire blinks at him. What? I mean, if you want, the three of us can definitely do something. Saws amends, but I want to spend time with you. Just you. Strangely, the first thing that Claire feels is relief. She hadn't realized her shoulders had tensed, or that her throat had tightened. She only notices the anxiety when it subsides. Thanks, Saws, is all she needs to say. They don't finish the movie or the pizza, but it's late and Donna's due to arrive early in the morning. Saws bids Claire a good night as she heads back to her room. For a moment, Claire pauses on the walkway, watching the night traffic trickle past the motel and the twinkling lights of Denver beyond. There's a chill in the air, like the season's about to change. She sleeps well that night. The following morning, after linking up with Donna and visiting the morgue, Saws is the one who figures out that what they're hunting is a pack of Noxerers and not a vampire nest. It takes another day for them to track the creatures to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town, a condemned edifice of concrete, dust and rot in. As the Thursday morning sun climbs high above the city, they arm themselves with pennies in one hand and blades in the other. Immediately after the three of them break into the building, Claire shoots a Noxerer through the head as it launches at them from a side room. As the other pack members scramble and run, disappearing into the stairwell, Saws pushes a penny into the monster's mouth and chops its head off, ensuring it won't get up again. You okay? Saws asks, squeezing her shoulder briefly. Claire nods, waving him off, and they run after Donna, who's already made it to the stairwell. Their voices bounce off the concrete walls as they climb, story after story, mingling with snarls from the monsters waiting above. The sky is a yawning chasm bearing down on the city, dusty and blue and cloudless, as the three of them chase the remaining Noxerers out onto the factory roof. They're 10 floors up, surrounded by bleached asphalt and poorly maintained industrial sprawl, with downtown Denver rising to the northwest. The summer sun is already shimmering off the concrete rooftop, but Claire barely notices the heat. She's entirely focused on their quarry. The three Noxerers present a snarling united front, ready to defend their territory and make a meal of the hunters as a bonus. To Claire's right, Donna brandishes her machete, grinning and just as eager. All righty then, one for each of us. Nice and easy. Donna gleefully attacks the only male of the pack, a massive looming specimen. The bigger female is almost taller than Saws, biceps rippling as she unsheathes her claw. And launches herself at him with teeth bared. The last, a small female who might have been a gymnast when she was still human, lunges at Claire with wild precision. Claire is barely quick enough to dodge her claws. Sunlight flashes in the monster's eyes, glints off her dual-pointed fangs. Spittle flies as Claire swings her machete, pennies clutched in her free hand, but her opponent is faster and spins out of reach. Instantly, the Noxerer screeches and attacks again, darting close and ducking underneath Claire's sweeping blade to slam into Claire's middle and send her tumbling to the ground. There's no time for even a breath before the Noxerer is on top of her, jaw opening wide like a shark and serrated teeth only inches from Claire's face. Claire grimaces, smelling rotten meat and halitosis, bracing her machete like a bar flat across the monster's chest. You seriously need to floss, Claire sneers, her lip curling in disgust, and throws the female off with a kick to her lower abdomen. The Noxera rolls nimbly into a crouch, claws scraping on the concrete. "Maybe I'll pick my teeth with your bones," she snarls. "You're just enough for a light snack." Claire rolls her eyes as she heaves herself to her feet. "Spare me." The monster abruptly swipes a kick and knocks Claire's legs out from underneath her. She has barely a half second of blue sky overhead before the Noxera blocks the sun. She releases a breath, bracing, gritting, clenching. The Noxera's maw is wide open, coming in for the kill. With a deft whipping of her left hand, Claire flings a penny into the Noxera's mouth. Her machete sweeps up and aims for the neck, but the creature dodges. The blade cuts only air. A howling screech makes Claire glance over to where Saz is fighting the other female he's wounded, bleeding from the side of his neck as he yanks his machete out of her torso. The smaller Noxera spits out the penny Claire had thrown into her mouth. Claire scrambles to dodge the next attack and very nearly finds her throat ripped out before Donna, having already killed the hulking male with relative ease, appears from the right and slams into the creature with a ckle that would have made a linebacker proud. Claire rolls and springs back onto her feet, dashing over to help Donna pin the Noxera down for long enough to shove another coin into her mouth. The Noxera roars, fighting back like a puma caught in a trap, but Donna wrenches her arms back and forces the monster up onto her knees. Claire grips her machete and swings hard, but the blade sticks in the neck. She has to hack a few times, sawing once or twice, to get through the bone, and finally with a squelching rip the head comes loose. There's no time to be disgusted. When Claire turns around to help Saz, his fight is already over. The last Noxera holds him at gunpoint. In the chaos of the fight, the monster had taken Cass's gun and is now aiming it straight at Cass's chest. He stands at the edge of the roof, breath heaving, bleeding from multiple wounds: his neck, his shoulder, his arm. Claire doesn't have to work out a plan with Donna, they both know what they have to do. In unison, they rush forward. The monster doesn't hear them coming until it's too late. Claire swipes from behind, slamming her fistful of coins into the Noxera's mouth. The monster's hand clenches in reflex and squeezes the trigger. A gunshot rings out over the rooftop. In the same instant, Donna slices off the head. Blood splashes across the concrete. The Noxera's corpse falls like a puppet that's just had its strings cut. More blood pumps out of its neck. Its heart hasn't stopped yet, but will soon. Claire huffs a breath, adrenaline still pounding in her veins. "Good job, hun," Donna tells her, wiping her machete on the leg of her pants. "Thanks," says Saz. "Are you both okay?" Claire takes a step toward Saz to check on him, then stops short. Her heart skips. Terror floods from her chest to her fingertips. He has another wound. It wasn't obvious at first, but there's no mistaking it now. There's a hole in his shirt, red soaking through, already dripping. "Saz," she shouts. Confusion flits across his face. His brows pull together, trying to sort out why she looks scared. He doesn't realize. She lurches forward, running for him, reaching for him. His mouth opens in a gasp, like he wants to say something. There's only a moment of fear, a flash of his eyes in the sun, and then his knees give out. He tips backwards. He vanishes over the edge of the roof. "No," she screams, her hand missing him by inches. She's so desperate to grab him that she nearly launches herself off the roof as well, but Donna seizes her and yanks her back before either of them can see Saz hit the ground. He does hit the ground. Though even from 10 stories up, Claire hears the noise. She can't cover her ears fast enough. Claire hears nothing of what Donna's saying. She wrenches herself out of Donna's grip and runs instead to the stairwell. Breath heaving, heart hammering, Claire makes it back down in record time. She doesn't know or care if Donna's keeping up. Running out of the building and back into the sunlight, Claire finds Saz on the pavement. A scream roars out of her chest. It doesn't stop. She skins her knees when she drops beside him. His blood is feathered out from his body across the asphalt. His limbs at all the wrong angles. Tendrils of blood trickle from his eyes and nose and ears. Donna's hands find Claire's shoulders, trying to pull her back and away, but Claire refuses to let go. She clutches Saz like she did after he'd rescued her from Randy, like he's the one safe thing left in the world. She can feel the bones smashed beneath his skin. His eyes are open, but there's nothing in them. Just reflecting the sky above. Hands shaking, Claire presses her fingers to the side of his neck, searching frantically for a pulse. She thinks she feels a heartbeat, and then another. But then it's gone and she's not sure it was there in the first place. For the second time in her life, she watches her father die. Donna strong arms Claire and drags her away at last. Claire cries heaving, racking sobs into Donna's jacket. They wrap Saws in a tarp and lift him into the truck bed for the drive home. His bones grind under the skin. Claire vomits onto the pavement. The drive back to Lebanon is deathly silent. Claire doesn't take notice of the traffic. She drives on autopilot, keeping Donna's truck in sight. They travel slowly, staying in the right lane and under the SP. Limit to avoid the possibility of getting pulled over and being caught with a dead body. As they cross the Kansas border, the numbness begins to ebb, making room for a tidal wave of guilt. A rapid fire film reel plays over and over in Claire's head, things she said to him, things he said to her, moments where they could have said things and didn't. This is her fault. Completely, entirely hers. She should never have asked him to come. Why couldn't she have just kept going to Denver, met up with Donna for the case, not involved him at all? Why couldn't she have left him alone? Claire gasps a sob, slamming the heel of her hand against the steering wheel again and again. It's all she can do to follow along behind Donna's truck and not veer off the road. She doesn't even know where they're going, really. Donna had called Sam already, made the arrangements and picked a meeting spot. It's not until they drive through the dusty main intersection of Lebanon hours later that Claire realizes where they're going. And her sobs begin anew. Her suspicion is confirmed when Donna leads her through cornfields, then into a more wooded area and finally turns onto a dirt road leading away into the trees. The meadow where they had burned Dean's body years ago looks exactly the same. Claire parks next to Donna, shuts off the engine, and then sits there. She can't move. Her fingers are numb again. Donna knocks on the window and opens the driver's side door. Claire's expecting Donna to ask if she's okay, but instead she just waits. Claire draws a deep breath, feeling lightheaded, and steps out onto the grass. Donna always keeps a couple of hatchets in the bed of her truck, and she's already retrieved them and shut the truck bed gate again. Claire's grateful, so that she doesn't have to see the tarp again. Rather than hand an axe to Claire, Donna places them on the hood of the Mustang and pulls Claire into a solid, embracing hug. Sam and Eileen are on their way, she says softly. It's the first thing Claire's heard that hasn't sounded like she was underwater. They'll be here soon. Donna's hand brushes over the hair on top of Claire's head, and Claire feels like a child. It should have been me, Claire says. Half mumbled and quiet enough that even she's not sure she said it. It had tumbled from her without thought. Abruptly, Donna pulls back. She takes Claire's face in her hands and forces her to meet her gaze. Listen to me, Donna says, her voice a cutting steel. Don't say that. Don't think it. It's not true, and nobody would ever want that. Saws would have given his life 1,000 times over if it meant you'd be safe, so don't you ever think that it should have been you. Claire swallows around the rock in her throat. It's my fault. No, it isn't. It's nobody's fault. Donna shakes her head, eyes swimming. It's just something that happened. Okay, hun. Hunts go wrong sometimes, they just do. We do what we can, but when that's not enough, it's nobody's fault. Her hands drop to Claire's shoulders, squeezing comfortingly. Least of all yours. Claire swipes at her eyes. She doesn't believe Donna, not really, but nothing feels real right now. She nods to avoid arguing about it. Donna pulls her in for another hug, quicker this time, and Claire thinks it might be because Donna needs some comfort too. When Donna lets go, she squeezes Claire's hand with a pained, tearful smile. Come on, hun, we can do this. A deep breath, a swallow of nerves, a final glance to the sky like a miracle might fall from it. Claire takes an axe and, alongside Donna, goes to cut wood for a pyre. Blank. December 2027. The summer passes in a haze, the autumn in a wind. It takes a long time for Claire to start to feel even close to normal. Kaya helps, and Jody and the girls. It's still hard, but time passes, day by day, week by week, and things change. The world turns. It's in October when Claire and Kaya get a notice from their landlord. The economy's in the shitter, she says. And she can't afford to keep leasing the apartment at such a discounted rate. With Kaya's income from the diner and Claire's income from, well, nothing, they can afford the new rent and are suddenly faced with the very real-world problem of finding a new place to live. It wasn't planned, and frankly hadn't even occurred to Claire that it might be an option. She just calls Sam one afternoon to complain, fed up with cheap apartments filled with roaches and mold, and Sam is the one to suggest it. So, this particular afternoon in early December, Claire and Kaya climb out of their rented U-Haul. Having loaded up absolutely everything from their Omaha apartment, Claire pulls the key from her pocket and unlocks the bunker door. They descend past the first door and push through the second. Arriving at the landing above the war room, Claire fumbles for the lights. The map table lights up below, then the library beyond. The rooms are warm and inviting. Claire's not sure it ever quite looked as homey before, but it does now. Although she's been here several times before, Kaya stares down in awe like it's brand new. Claire stands beside her and grabs Kaya's hand with a grin. "Welcome home," she says. Box by box, bag by bag, they unload the truck. Their belongings pile up in the library, hiding the tables beneath stacks of cardboard and suitcases. An hour in and they've only managed half the load, but they take a break for lunch and eat cold sandwiches at the map table. They're sweaty and hungry but eager to get their things organized and unpacked. The door above swings open before they finish, and a little boy dashes through and thunders down the stairs. "Dean!" Claire exclaims, throwing her arms around him when he crashes into her with a hug. "How are you doing, big guy?" "I threw up." Claire laughs, pushing him away like the germ-covered bomb he is. "Okay, then." Sam and Eileen descend the stairs more calmly behind him, and Sam shakes his head. "Sorry, he got carsick on the way here." "Dean, go get a glass of water, okay? You need to drink something." Dean runs off again. He's been here often enough before and knows where the kitchen is. Eileen yells at him to walk, not run, then chases after him to make sure he doesn't break anything. Sam chuckles and gives Claire a huge, encompassing hug as a greeting. "How've you been?" Claire nods. "Good, I'm okay." His gaze pauses on her face, searching, looking for cracks in the armor. She knows he worries about her. He's going to ask her again later, just to make sure she's telling the truth. He greets Kaya, too, and they sit and chat while they finish up the last few bites of lunch. Afterwards, all five of them, even Dean, carrying the smallest and least fragile items, make quick work of the rest of the moving truck. Once all of their possessions are safely inside, Eileen goes to help Kaya prepare a large dinner in the kitchen while Dean scribbles in a coloring book at the table. Sam takes Claire on a sort of homeowner's tour of the bunker. He shows her the trick shower handle, the electrical panel that he'd never quite figured out, and the hidden nooks and crannies to avoid. He warns her about the occasional cursed objects in the archives and encourages her to keep the library strictly organized so they don't lose track of any of the books. She promises that she'll take care of the place, and makes a jab about not letting demons and monsters walk through nearly as often as he did. Walking through the maze of corridors, Claire and Sam pass by Dean's bedroom, still sealed shut. They pass Cass's door, still open. "Sam, you're sure this is okay?" Claire asks. A pang shoots through her chest. Us moving in. He pauses, studies her for a moment like he's not certain of why she's hesitant. "Claire, I honestly couldn't think of anyone better. This is where you belong." It hurts, in a sort of beautiful way, to hear him say it. The only shocking thing is that she actually believes him. She's not sure she's ever felt she belonged anywhere before. Late that evening, Sam carries Dean, fast asleep on his shoulder, back out to the car, and Eileen makes Claire and Kaya promise to visit in a few weeks for Christmas. They leave Kaya and Claire in the library, surrounded by their previous life stacked on the tables and their new life lining the walls. Kaya squeezes Claire's hand. "Well, we did it," she says with a beaming grin. "New home." There's a large labeled box at the head of the table containing their bedding. Kaya hefts it up and carries it off to the bedroom they chose for their own. It's late and they're exhausted, and they have days of unpacking ahead of them, but Claire finds herself still standing in the library. The empty spot on the table. Top where the box had been is carved with names. She reaches out, brushes her fingers over Cass's. Dad, I'm home, she whispers. She draws a long breath, chest tight. The library is quiet and still. She looks up to the shelves, the columns. The rafters that now belong to her and Kaya. The people who have been here before her, before Saz, before Sam and Dean, they're still here. She can feel them all around. Maybe someday someone else will stand in this spot and wonder about her. For now, this is her home. After all, she's a legacy. The end.